This is insane. You have $100 million cars driving 200 plus miles an hour for teams that are getting billion-dollar valuations, all for a team that is blowing more than $30,000 per second of a race. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the business of the most expensive sport in the entire world. This is the business of Formula One. So I'm super curious. With crazy valuations and teams that are burning hundreds of millions of dollars per year, why is it that some of the smartest investors in the entire world, yeah, private equity, that's right, folks like me, Blackstone KKR baby, why are they investing billions and millions of dollars into these franchises that are burning cash? It just kind of doesn't make sense. So now my head's spinning in a bunch of different directions, and I just have to get to the bottom of this. So you're gonna wanna buckle in, because we're gonna dive into every number that is involved in the Formula One franchise, sport, teams, so that we can truly understand why is it that smart money is putting dollars into this particular sport. And I'm pretty confident that by the end of this video, I'm gonna share with you guys at least how to buy a Formula One team, but more importantly, why investors are buying Formula One teams. Let's rock. So for most of its history, Formula One has been kind of an exclusive sport for billionaires, right? You see the yachts, you see the Rolex sponsorships, you see everything that screams ultra high net worth individual. But the sport is now drastically changing. Like, it's no longer just a sporting franchise, and it's now transforming itself into a global media empire. You're seeing revenue for the sport grow through the roof. You're seeing audiences becoming younger and younger, and new money, young money, is flooding into the sport. And what has this caught the attention of? Investors. And this is what fascinates me the most. Like, I come from a world where we like to buy boring businesses that have strong growth rates and high cash flow margins. Formula One kind of doesn't scream any of that, maybe besides the growth. But like, when it comes to the operational value creation, high cash flow margins, like the bread and butter, what private equity loves to do, it kind of doesn't hit that mark from the surface for me right now. So I've developed a roadmap of what I think is going to be an essential sort of like way for us to build a thesis of how and why to buy a Formula One team. So the first step we're going to have on this is diving into the ownership. Who actually owns some of these teams? And then we're going to dive into the revenue and profitability, and we're going to try to truly circle back and unpack what is the bet these investors are making on this particular franchise. So hopefully I'm going to convince even myself that this is actually a viable asset class to put dollars into from a private equity lens. So let's put our PE hats on and let's dive into what truly makes a great investment when it comes to a Formula One team. First stop is ownership. All right, so when you're watching a Formula One team, the owners are likely not in the picture, okay? The camera is set on the drivers, the camera is set on the paddocks of the fancy attendees, the camera is set on the garages and the teams with the headphones on navigating the driver through the race, right? That's where the eyes are. But the big money goes to the owners. So to outline ownership, I have a pretty cool chart that I made. It's gonna outline two things. One, who owns the team, and then two, what the latest valuation was for that team. I think there's just a fun stat to see. So starting with everyone's favorite Formula One team, the most notorious, one of the oldest Formula One teams that existed, Ferrari. Ferrari is public. They're owned by the public shareholders of Ferrari, and it's RACE if you ever want to look at the ticker online. That is owned by public shareholders and mostly the Ferrari family that owns most of the stock. And they were valued at $4.8 billion. That's right, with a B. And then you have Mercedes. Mercedes is valued at $3.9 billion, and they're owned by a trio. One, of course, is the Mercedes-Benz Group, which is the large automotive business. But then you also have Toto Wolff, as well as this large chemical giant named Ineos. And you may have seen their logos on the cars every now and then. But those are the three folks that own the Formula One team, Mercedes. And then you got the current hotshots that it seemed to win every single race. You have Red Bull. And I just found this out. Red Bull also has a sister team, Racing Bulls. But thinking about like the Red Bull group, they're owned mainly by the billionaire family that runs and owns the Red Bull business. So Red Bull, of course, is owned by Red Bull. And their recent valuation for Red Bull was around $3.5 billion. And for the Racing Bulls group, that was at $1.2 billion. And then next you have have McLaren. This is owned by a mix of the Bahrain Sovereign Wealth Fund, as well as MSP Sports Capital, which is a private equity investor in the US, as well as CYYN Holdings, which is in Abu Dhabi. So they kind of have a bunch of different global investors, as well as PE investors on the cap table. And their latest valuation was around $2.7 billion. Then you have Aston Martin, which is owned largely by a Canadian billionaire named Lawrence Stroll, but also has investors from private equity and venture investors, HPS Investment Partners, as well as Excel, which is a VC firm in Silicon Valley. And their latest valuation was around $2.1 billion. And then you have a cool one here, Alpine, which was valued at $1.5 billion. They're owned by Reynolds Group, as well as a consortium of different investors like Redbird, Outro Capital, and Maximum Effort, which includes some celebrities like Ryan Reynolds and Michael B. Jordan. Then you have the Williams team, which is owned by private equity firm Dalton Capital. They're valued at $1.2 billion. And then you have Haas, which is valued around $1 billion. This is owned by the machine tool company Haas Automation. And then lastly, you have Kickstarter, which is valued around $1.2 billion. It is going to be renamed to the official Audi Formula One team. So there you have it. That's ownership. So now that we outlined who owns all the teams on the grid, let's try to figure out how the heck do they make money? All right, so this is like a really big question because from the outside looking in, it seems like a billionaire sport. They're burning a bunch of money per second in a race, and it just seems to have like a bunch of fanfare and flash to it. Like this doesn't scream PE, all right? So I want to really understand, how does a team like Ferrari or Williams or Alpine, how the heck do those particular teams make money? I kind of get a gist of how the sport does. And the sport, which is owned by Liberty Media Group, they make a bunch of their money through broadcasting rights and brand deals and teams having to pay them to participate in the sport and drivers having to pay fees, right? The sports revenue model kind of makes sense. But for the actual underlying teams, how do they make money? So the revenue model for a team is kind of split in two ways. You have one, prize money, and then two, sponsorships. Let's dive into prize money first. So for the prize money, this is kind of cool. All the teams, of course, are competing for first place. And that's just not for an ego. You actually get a pretty sizable payout if you come first in the Champions League. And each year, teams are competing for a prize pool that is $900+ million, potentially billions of dollars, and the payout can be pretty massive. And then check this cool table out from the race, which is diving into what the estimated prize pool allocation would be for this particular season for races. And the cool thing here is that Ferrari actually gets legacy payments just for being Ferrari from the prize pool. And that's kind of unfair, but I'll leave that for debates. You can put your point of view in the comments down below. So for sponsorships, I want you to take a quick look at this car. There are a bunch of logos and names on here, and it's not just for flash, and these are not just simple stickers to make the cars look cool. Like, these are hundreds of millions of dollars of brand deals and brand placements that these teams are earning. Like, overall in 2023, Formula One teams have generated almost $1.4 billion in sponsorship revenue. And if you look at Red Bull alone, there's a super big logo, Oracle, on their car. That alone, Oracle is paying $100 million per year to Red Bull for that brand placement. That's insane. Why do they do that? Millions of fans, fast cars, flair, and you get right on the side of the vehicle where everyone can see it. It's genius for these kind of businesses. So far, so good, right? But now let's talk about the big problem, the cost. Because I'm telling you now, the costs are massive and they're literally everywhere. So I'm going to run through a list of all of the hypothetical costs of running a Formula One team. Not to mention like the factory and other things like that. But here are some of the quick costs off the rip, just to build the car. Costs around $150 million. Then driver salaries. That can depend for young junior talent, a few $1 million, but for top talent like Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, you're looking at $60 to $65 million of a salary. Then travel and logistics. FYI, there are 24 races all across the world, and you got to move the entire team, garage, and vehicles and equipment to the different races. That alone is around $10 to $20 million. Hospitality and marketing, if you want to have particular team paddocks, that's going to cost you around $15 million. And there's a bunch of other ancillary costs as well. And then when it comes to the development of the actual car, F1 actually set a cap of how much teams can spend into the development of their particular vehicle. That's because they don't want the huge teams like Ferrari that have billions of bucks to have all the fancy, flashy gear and equipment versus some of the smaller, low-budget teams can't compete, right? So they leveled that playing field. But teams are getting so creative around R&D and salaries and other ways to sort of continue to spend into the particular teams, right? You're seeing teams spend on average between $250 to $350 million in costs. That is just massive. Like, keep in mind, some of the best tech companies in the entire world aren't even burning $300 million, let alone a small business, right? And then to bring this cost all together, you're seeing Formula One teams spend between $250 to $350 million per year just in annual costs. That is insane. So once again, Kenny, like, I'm asking myself now, like, why would a private equity investor that has a fiduciary duty to generate strong risk-adjusted returns that focuses on profit margins, cash flow, ability to pay down debt, ability to scale, M&A, value creation, synergies, like, why are you looking at a business that is burning $350 million plus of costs and only has revenue from sponsorships and prize money, which are very, very tough to predict, underwrite, and scalably grow? My head hurts. Make it make sense. Like, what are they seeing that we're just not seeing? All right, let's keep digging. Okay, so I think I found a few reasons why. So private equity got into the mix early 2020s, right? Like right now in 2025, things are popping for Formula One, but it hasn't always been like that. So I think one of the unique strategies of private equity, which is similar across other industries, is private equity likes to buy the dip, meaning they look at distressed assets, underperforming companies, and underperforming sectors to try to find value on the buy. Let's take Williams, for example. Like, that team has not won a Formula One championship in over like 20 plus years. AKA, from the surface, seems like a declining racing franchise. So Dorilton, very smart lower middle market private equity investors, they scooped this business up for around $200 million. And what I think they did, we'll dive into their strategy later, they focused on buying a declining franchise that they could then improve the team, the operations, and the branding around this particular business. Like, they treated Williams as if it was a business and found ways to improve the things that were not working well on that team. So let's see. So the PE playbook for a Formula One team it's pretty simple, right? Like, you invest in better facilities, you invest in hiring really good leadership and talent across that team, and you aim to rebuild the long-term competitiveness of that particular franchise. Like James Vowles, the new team principal that they hired, said that this is a long-term, multi-year turnaround for the franchise. That sounds like private equity turnaround experts. In order to have an incredible turnaround, you have to have an incredible infrastructure. And what are private equity investors really good at? Building a sound infrastructure for scaling and growth and profits. And then let's take Alpine, for example. Back in 2023, they raised capital from Redbird Capital, Altro Capital, and also very strategic co-investors, such as Ryan Reynolds, aka Deadpool, tens of millions of fans, as well as Michael B. Jordan, another celebrity. This is another bread and butter private equity playbook. Buy a business, bring in co-investors that are strategic influencers or celebrities that can help with the branding and marketing of that particular business. And now you have a right to compete for the most valuable asset, which is attention. So with the Williams and the Alpine play for private equity and sports team, you're seeing a really, really, really sound thesis. Set up the foundation for scaling and operational efficiencies and long-term turnarounds. Works every time. But then also, you're seeing the Hollywood-like appeal of bringing on strategic co-investors that can help brand and market that underlying business. To do what? Compete for attention. Psh. Now it's starting to make more sense. All right, let's keep rolling. And then I think the third leg to the private equity strategy is related to like a thesis that one of my old bosses at Blackstone taught me. And he taught me that you want to buy the worst house in the best neighborhood that is growing. And what that means for private equity is you want to buy the worst team in the fastest growing sport in the world. Arguably Formula One, right? And that kind of makes sense because rising tides lift all boats. Formula One is not a declining sport. It's blowing up right now. So even if you're the worst team in Formula One, odds are if you can get it at a good valuation, you are seeing that equity value increase. Like, let's break down what's happening in Formula One. Like, for Formula One right now, you are seeing audience growth. In 2023, you had 515 million unique viewers, which is up 20% from 2022. Double-digit growth in the hundreds of millions of eyeballs. That is attention. What's driving that? You're seeing the Drive to Survive Netflix series come out, which is attracting a bunch of Gen Z and millennial fans. You're also seeing movies come out, like the Formula movie with Brad Pitt. Like, there's so much anticipation for the branding and the aesthetic and the appeal of this particular sport. And it is doing nothing but taking that fan base from 100 million to 200 million to 400 million to 500 million to, I don't know, could potentially reach 700, 800 million plus. And if this is making sense to you as well and you're a fan of Formula One, do me a huge solid and smash that subscribe button. It means the world to me as well as the rest of the community. And look, this is a community where we do nothing but make smart money moves and try to understand the business, the economics, as well as the investing behind the most exciting things happening in our world today. So welcome. Okay, so now that we've got a working thesis here, big crazy stat time. I think I told you before that Williams was bought for $200 million. And I don't know if you caught this. When I was laying out the ownership, Williams was also now valued at $1.2 billion. That's a 6 times return in just a handful of years for a declining racing franchise. What is happening? Like, are they just the greatest investors of all time? Is this luck? Is this a bubble? I don't know. But this just shows that, like, that thesis of what I articulated, it is working incredibly well. But I think I can hone it down into like if I were the chairman and CEO of Dalton as well as Williams right now, like this is my priority. Like I'm making money right now on paper, but this is like the key driver of like how I want to unlock growth and the equity value for this. So now I want to dive into like one of the most important things is the true driver of valuation growth in Formula One teams. All right, so like I mentioned, the name of the game is to buy and own attention. What attention? That 500 million plus unique viewership every single year growing 20% plus. That is insanely valuable. Now, if you're an owner of a Formula One team, you can see the valuation of your team growing, I think, in 2 ways, and it can both happen. Size of market and share of market. Size of market. How many eyeballs, how much viewership is coming to the market? As we mentioned, that's 500 million plus unique viewers growing at 20% plus. You can't really change or influence that. But what owners and managers of teams can actually do is focus on their share of wallet, their share of viewership. And this is where teams and operators of Formula One teams are hyper-focused. And on this share of market, aka share of attention concept, I like to call this like an intrinsic thing you can do to fix the underlying operations of a team. So you find a great team, and the main thing you want to send across to every single person on that team, the drivers, the mechanics, the engineers, the aerodynamics, everyone, is that we need to have a drive to win. Because what does winning do? Winning unlocks more prize money as well as more attention and fanfare onto our particular franchise and drivers, which brings in more eyeballs to our particular logos, which brings in more eyeballs to sponsors. Now we're working here. So if we can dominate on the grid, get first place, get on the podiums, then we will have more people seeing our uniforms, our teams, our drivers, our logos, our sponsors, and then our entire revenue model. 2x's, 3x's, 4x's. So this is what you do. As a private equity investor, you buy a declining franchise in a growing market. You tell that franchise to focus on winning, and you bought in at a low valuation. And next thing you know it, the drivers do well. They get first place, second place, third place. They win the championship. And next thing you know it, you have a 4 to 5 to 6 to 10x of your entry multiple. And that's why investing in Formula One teams can have growth equity and venture-like returns, as well as distressed investing entry points. Like you buy a declining team in a rapidly growing sport, you invest in the team's operations, the people, the leadership to perform better. And as you perform better, you get more eyeballs, you get more sponsors, and the revenue and the overall financial profile of the business transforms significantly. All right. I convinced myself. It makes sense. Like all investors, like you're making an essential bet. And I think the bet that these investors are making is they're betting on the creation, the sustainability, and the scaling of a global entertainment flywheel that brings in viewers, sponsors, broadcasting rights, more fanfare, more viewers, more brand deals. You get it? Like this flywheel effect can create massive outsized returns. And if you can buy it at a distressed price, that's amazing. Now, how can we invest and buy some of these teams today? That's a little tough. I think we missed the window of like the $200 million purchase price for these teams. As you can see, they're all trading at above $1 billion valuation. But if you are an individual investor trying to get exposure to the growth of the Formula One sport, there's like 2 ways you can invest. And by the way, FYI, this is not investment recommendations. This is just simple facts and things that you can do if you have capital that you want to put into work. And I'm not recommending this. I would never do that on this channel. All right. All I'm saying is if you've done your research and want to invest in Formula One, you can buy the Liberty Media stock or you can invest in Ferrari. And Ferrari is publicly traded and their financials reflect the Formula One racing team's performance as well. So buying Ferrari kind of gets exposure to the Formula One racing team. And this is not advice, and I'm not telling you or recommending you buy into those stocks. I'm just saying those are options. Plain and simple. Do your research and think critically. Read a Warren Buffett book. So the next time you're watching a Formula One race, I want you to think beyond just the fast corners, the yachts in Monaco, and the super, super, super fast teams. Instead, don't think about the drivers on the podiums. Think about the owners in the boardrooms and figure out what's going through their heads as they think about the economics, the revenue models, and the costs of these teams. Because Formula One is just like any other entity, it is a business. So as a business, you have to think about it critically in managing your costs, your profits, your scaling, your market, everything about it. There's a dollar to everything. So when you're watching a race, check out those logos and think about those logos as hundreds of millions of dollars for those teams. So this exercise gave me an absolute massive upgrade in my appreciation for the sport, and shout out to everyone that is involved in the Formula One industry. You all are absolute rock stars. Now, of course, private equity loves the fast and flashy lifestyle of Formula One. But what's even crazier is they like the gory, intense, gritty combat lifestyle of the UFC. I'm talking KKR and Silver Lake back in 2016 bought the UFC for billions of dollars. So you know me, when I see that there's money to be made private equity style, I dive all in. So check out this next video where I outline everything there is to know about how private equity changed the world of the UFC, and I dive into everything around the unit economics and how that sport makes money. So that one is an absolute banger, and I'll catch you guys on that one. And if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. It means the world to me as well as the community. And I'll catch you guys doing some more laps in Formula One, baby. Peace. All right, Lewis Hamilton, I got a lot of money on you, dude. Get it together. We need Ferrari to step up, man. They're paying you millions. Let's go.